Yep, okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. In the correspondence this evening, we have 4 disciplinary actions to read into the record. The first is Philip Lamonda of Rome, New York State EMT number 370415, who had his certification revoked effective November 19th, 2013 for violations of Part 800.16 subsection D. The Jasper Volunteer Ambulance in Jasper, New York State Agency Code 5025, had their certification suspended for 30 days effective December 9th, 2013, and they were assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Public Health Law 3012, Section 1, Part B, and subsection D. Keith McCabe of North Tonawanda, New York State EMT number 263258, and has his certification suspended for 1 year, effective December 15th, 2013. The suspension was stayed, and he was assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Part 800.15, Section B, 800.16, Section A, 800.16, Section B, and 800.16, Section F. Melbourne Jones of Freeport, New York State EMT number 381399, had his certification suspended effective January 6th of 2014 through May 1st of 2014 for violations of Part 800.16, subsection D. For those interested, the letters of those disciplinary actions are here and on file. Just a question, Lynn, on the agenda that everyone has, item number 3 under correspondence regarding action on Rich's at-large seat. Was that due for action this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have 3 additional items of correspondence, the first being from the Department of Health that I'll read into the record, even though not necessarily required, advising the town of Greenfield has received their municipal operating certificate, which will expire December 24th of 2015. We also have a letter from the Department of Health that was sent to my attention, which is up here, advising us that Dr. Daly's CMAC term was expiring on December 31st. We were not in session, so we did not act upon that. We have a seconded motion from the Executive Board to reappoint Dr. Daly to a new term, and we'll act on that now. Is there any discussion on that seconded motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Dr. Daly. Understood, thank you. We also have a letter from our Remsco at-large delegate, Rich Brandt, expressing his desire to continue to serve once his term expires. And I'll ask for a motion for reappointment of Mr. Brandt.
I'll make a motion.
Lynn, second. Jeff Williams, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Mr. Brandt, thank you. Being efficient, we're taking care of all these things at the top of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, may we also do that for Anne Marie Cross?
Anne Marie Cross, is your, since I don't have a letter from you, is your desire and intention to continue to serve in the council? Okay. We have a motion to appoint Anne Marie.
I make a motion.
Lynn, a second. Steve Kroll, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Just Anne Marie.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. Lynn, anyone else?
No, that completes the list.
Thank you. Who will be giving the CON committee report next on the agenda?
I can if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Good thing we reappointed you first.
Going into Mr. Reagan's big shoes. The CON committee met this evening and brings forth one second motion for your consideration and review. The motion is to accept the Department of Health's finding of no bar for the fitness and competency of the applicant Clifton Park Half Moon Emergency Corps Incorporated.
Thank you, Rich. That's a seconded motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Any discussion on that motion before we do a roll call vote? Okay. Has everyone signed this sheet in attendance? I know I checked earlier, but I just want to be sure. Start with Albany County, Les Fremantle.
In favor.
William Price.
In favor.
Jim Reagan is excused. Is there any Albany County alternate present? Okay.
I think it's just you. Yeah. I think I'm just Bill Price's alternate. I don't think it's a county in
Right.
general. Yep.
Okay. Columbia County, Michael Potter.
In favor.
Anyone else from Columbia County here? Greene County, Dave Bettini.
In favor.
Aiden O'Connor.
In favor.
Is anyone here as an alternate for Phil Myers? Rensselaer County, Jim Doherty.
In favor.
Kathleen Allen.
In favor.
Saratoga County, Kevin Robert.
Abstain.
Anyone here as an alternate for Saratoga County?
I don't think we have it.
Nash Alexander.
In favor.
Schenectady County, Dale Lingenfelter.
In favor.
Anthony Calgieri, I believe, is here as an alternate. Vote for Jim Vina.
In favor.
Chris Keogh.
In favor.
Dr. Daly.
In favor.
Steve Kroll.
In favor.
Steve Rinaldi, as the chairman, I'll abstain from the vote. Rich Brandt.
In favor.
Lynn Kane.
In favor.
Jim Stairs.
In favor.
Francis Nerney.
In favor.
Zoraida Pinheiro.
In favor.
Steve Retzloff.
In favor.
Jeffrey Williams.
In favor.
Anne Marie Cross.
In favor.
Is there anyone who has voting rights whose name I have not called?
21 in favor, 2 abstentions.
Motion carries with 21 in favor and 2 abstentions. Congratulations. Rich, is there any further business from the CON committee to be brought before the council? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to the executive director report from Tim.
Okay, everybody should have a copy, hopefully you do. We're starting off the new year with a lot of training, both in-house and off-site. We have a very robust EMT class starting tonight. Actually, administrative night was last week. Class session starts tonight at SUNY Albany. We have about 70 registrants for that class, so we're very excited about that. Second SUNY class we've given, the initial class we gave last year had about 30, maybe 35 enrollees in it. A couple points on my report. The anthropometry study that we worked so hard to schedule earlier this month here at Remo with the Centers for Disease Control and National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health was canceled at the last minute. CDC and NIOSH couldn't get their tractor trailers out of the mountains of Virginia during a snowstorm. It was a 3-day setup here. That would have really severely impacted the schedule of the 80 people we had registered. It was thought best that we canceled, and we did. Don't have a rescheduled date yet, but we're working with CDC. Hopefully we can pull that off. For those that have participated in the Mohawk Hospital Equipment GPO, Mohawk has opted not to renew the contract with us. The agreement or initiative never really took off here. That will not impact the agencies that do business with Mohawk. You'll still be able to place your orders and receive your discounts there. It's just that we won't have a contract with them here through Remo. The last thing I thought I was pretty excited about, we were approached by the Department of Health asking for a favor and helping us locate a DOH regional training site for written exams in Saratoga County. As we had a scheduled class at Skidmore, we had a good relationship with Skidmore. Our staff approached the administration at Skidmore College, and lo and behold, DOH now has a Southern Saratoga or Mid-Saratoga County regional training site at Skidmore College. That concludes my report, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Tim? Thanks, Tim. Let's take the treasurer's report, Rich.
Sure, I won't read the balance sheet to you, we're still in very good shape. Total assets of $561,000 and total liabilities of less than $26,000. We do have two bills for approval that crept up on us during executive board. Do you want to bring us up here, Steve? One is to replace the finance coordinator's computer, which is ancient, whatever the current market price would be, and the other is to sponsor Dr. Daly for conference travel for an amount of $2,500 a year, and we're going to revisit that in a period of
6 months. 6 months.
6 months or sooner, perhaps. Personally, I feel it's not enough, but $2,500 is the motion on the floor. So those are both bills that are bills for your approval.
So we have seconded motion from the executive board to allocate reasonable market capital for the purchase of the PC and $2,500 for Dr. Daly for continuing medical education. That'll be revisited in 2 months. That comes forward as a seconded motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Dr. Daly. Thank you. Rich, any other reports?
That's it. Finance.
Thank you, sir. On the GPO Finance Committee, Mr. Kroll.
As Tim said, we will be no longer marketing, and that means we'll no longer receive a marketing fee. If you do business with Mohawk Hospital Supply, the pricing should remain in effect. But the reality is that it didn't take off, and not enough purchasers were identified for us to ever earn the kind of return we would need to make this a sustainable program. So those that still use it can still work with Mohawk directly, but Remo won't get the percentage off the top of that. And I think it was a good concept, but it just didn't fly with enough agencies either able or willing to purchase.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? Okay. Dr. Daly, would you provide, please, the medical directory, the MAC, and the academic committee reports, and the trifecta of medical directorships?
So the daily hour begins. I just got back from Tucson, where I went for the National Association of EMS Physician Training. So it's always a fascinating meeting to see how people are doing things in really high-functioning systems and see how people are doing where they're barely keeping the wheels on. And it's nice for me to go there and recognize that we're a lot closer to the former than the latter. There are some systems out there that are in dire trouble, and I look around me all the time and I just see us doing things really well and moving forward. I really appreciate that. There is a copy of pre-hospital emergency care with some evidence-based guidelines in EMS, which is something that the National Association of EMS Physicians, working with EMS, National Association EMS, I think officials, is putting together over time. This is going to increasingly support what we do in the field and how we should be creating protocols in order to make sure that they're evidence-based and providing care in as optimal way as we can for our patients. There'll be one copy that we'll leave here, so if anybody wants to take a read of it, you can. I would go taking a look to see whether I can get a copy of it kicking around. You probably have one. If you don't have one kicking around, this is a journal that I would recommend for every organization to get, to have around. GEMS and EMS Magazine distill some of this pretty well. This is where most of our body of literature is going to be reports in pre-hospital emergency care. It was a fascinating meeting, and there was a lot of discussion. One thing that actually led to a great deal of discussion was the study that many of you participated in, which was the survey on intranasal medication use, which we conducted through the Remo ALS system and got really good response from the paramedics in the region. One of the things that we learned is that most folks like the way medications work intranasally. We learned that some people need to make sure that they're focusing on what they can and can't use, because about 10% of people thought that they could use morphine, for example, intranasally. And that was just interesting, led to some very good discussions with some of the other educators and physicians that came by and reviewed our poster. talk about. I'm gonna have those results, and that poster itself available here, so people can walk by and see some of the things that we've done. And that's what I'm gonna do now with any poster that we do regionally, is we're gonna bring it back afterwards. Have Tim put it up wherever he would like to, maybe he wants to cycle through them, maybe he wants to put a bunch of them up, just so people can see what we've done. And then my goal is to get those results back out to folks so they can see. The basic results, people believe that fentanyl and midazolam work very nice intranasally. And fascinatingly, more people that have used intranasal medications and had success believe that glucagon works well intranasally, although the people who have used glucagon intranasally don't think it works very well. So if you've used one medication intranasally and it worked, you think, another one will work well. And then the people who have actually used glucagon intranasally weren't overly impressed. Given the price of glucagon, let's not expect that there'll be a double-blinded glucagon intranasal IN study anytime. On that subject, I have a conference call with the FDA scheduled for this Thursday to discuss intranasal naloxone. My hope is that we will get an administrative approval from the FDA for intranasal administration. On the other hand, since now most of the country is using intranasal naloxone, it just really doesn't matter. And what I'm going to implore the FDA is, don't make yourselves irrelevant. You go with the population and allow them to be and approve it. We'll see what happens. Other things that are just cooking along in my corner. First, we are going to be sponsoring the law enforcement intranasal naloxone program for any law enforcement agency that has defibrillators. We'll be doing that through a collaboration between Remo and Albany Med. Details of that still have to be worked out. Basically, what we're going to do is allow any agency that currently has, any law enforcement agency currently using defibrillators to participate. What will end up happening is that way we'll be able to maintain a modicum of control over what's going on out there, make sure that we have non-expired naloxone, and not have physicians that don't have any interest in pre-hospital care signing off on this stuff and getting it out there. There have been a broad variety of people signing up to participate in community programs. I want to make sure that all of the data remains internal. We can review it and we can see where this is being used, how it's being used, and maintain some oversight. So it's one way of dealing with something that's sort of gone viral and trying to bring it back inside just by helping folks out. From the meetings themselves, we talked a little bit about protocols back in December, and then during the CMAC meeting, or more accurately during the breaks from the CMAC meeting, we had some very broad-based meetings with folks from other regions. The Central New York folks came out to meet with us, actually drove out from Syracuse. Dr. Fulligar drove out from SUNY Upstate, which was very impressive. We really appreciate his partnership on this. Monroe Livingston's well represented as always, Southern Tier, Western New York. There is a broad-based push to make a single protocol from Yonkers to Niagara Falls and all the way up to Montreal for 2015. We are currently in the process of delineating some of the commentary that we got off the SurveyMonkey website. Some of those comments were really, really good. Some weren't, but most were really, really good. And some other suggestions that we've gotten along the way, particularly from Monroe Livingston, who has very strong protocols, has been good. We've already given out a number of homework assignments, so people are working on that, particularly around issues of death and dying and some excited learning stuff, where there really is some questions. Other exciting news from the REMAC, Clifton Park Half Moon has a specialty care transport program that has been well endorsed and supported by the Regional Medical Advisory Committee. We believe this is actually a high-functioning program. We're extremely impressed by the level of education that this agency is putting into that program, the standards which they're doing. And fascinated that they're going to actually do some nurse paramedic model in some of these as well, which is going to be very interesting to see. I'm sure they'll keep us up on how that's going. It's going to be fascinating to watch. And outside of that, apologies, no Android app yet for the protocols. But everybody that's got an iPhone loves them. This is not a push. I do own 2 shares of Apple stock. Not me pushing Apple products, ignoring the fact that I have 2 of them sitting in front of me. We are actively working to get an Android app. Sir? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. Any questions for Dr. Daly? Other than regarding his stock portfolio of Apple computer? All right. Remsco, Rich?
Remsco actually did meet in January, and supposedly will meet in May, although firm dates have not yet been set, nor has the venue. Carol Brandt was kind enough to provide everyone a nicely typed report, which were available at the door, and also sent out to you by email. I'll just hit on a couple of the highlights. Ask Mr. Cole to jump in, please, because you know more than I do on the latest parts of it. The most important news that came out of this particular session was that currently the state has not paid its bill to the state exam testing contractor. So as of March 31st, the state very likely may not be able to test students who complete EMS courses. That includes both original and recertification courses. I personally see it as a potential emerging public health crisis. Dr. Daly doesn't think so. We'll find a way out.
I think there'll be a better solution.
Yeah. Steve, you have some new information on it?
We've been asked to not alarm people, but to let people know that there is just a real possibility that the state could miss a couple months of exams. So if you are a recert, there is a procedure that the state can extend you if the exam is canceled, but the state also has identified that they would have to do that for thousands of people, which would take the staff of the Bureau of EMS, which is relatively small, away from basically all the responsibilities of working full-time on research. But for new classes that would test in April and beyond, there could be a couple-month hiatus for a course sponsor. That means you may have to tell people that are finishing a class in May or June that they may end up testing in July or August. It means they're going to have to keep their knowledge current and fresh right before the exam. There is a reasonable possibility that this will not go to the crisis stage. The governor's office is working with the right people that needed to know about this to act on what is essentially an interagency ability of different agencies within state government all not able to function together. The people that can break that up know about it, so there is some time to get it done. So we don't want everyone to go and put in their contingency plan in place today, but I think the possibility does exist. And I don't know, Rich, that's about as accurate as I think we can be at the moment.
By their own numbers, more than 20,000 people took a New York State examination. I won't read the rest of the report. The only thing I also wanted to mention, many of you may remember him. I learned at the Remsco meeting, and some of you may know otherwise. George Johnson passed away after a long battle with cancer. The older folks in this room, I'm sure, remember him well. He was one of the 2 people who founded Remo along with Earl Evans and Doc Weston. Earl was the only one still with us. So I just wanted to pass that along, maybe ask for a moment of silence and remembrance.
Thank you, Rich. I'd like to observe a moment of silence in honor of George Johnson. Thank you. I know the nurses committee will meet this week. Is there anything for today's report? we have any report from the MCI committee for today? I know PJ's not here. Is anyone carrying a report? Lynn, anything additional from the membership committee?
Nothing additional, sir.
From the nominating committee, Mr. Reagan is not here. Instead, he is in sunny Florida. However, the current slate of officers have all expressed their desire to continue in their current roles. And so we will hold those elections at this point, and I'll defer to Kevin to run the chair.
Sure. All right, we have one nomination for chairman. Is there any nominations from the floor? Nominations from the floor? Is there any nominations from the floor? Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that one vote be cast for you for chairman when the election be closed.
Second? All in favor? Opposed? I'll abstain. Thank you. Appreciate your continued support and faith. For the position of first vice chairman, we have one nomination for Kevin Robert. Do we have any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor?
Make-
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, I move the nominations be closed and that the secretary cast $1 for Kevin Roberts as vice chair, first vice chair.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Lynn? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain?
I abstain.
Kevin will abstain. Your abstinence is noted. As was mine. We have one nomination for second vice chairman, Steve Kroll. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close nominations and the secretary cast one vote for Steve Kroll for second vice chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Embry Cross. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? We have one nomination for treasurer. I believe it's treasurer for life. I'm modifying the nomination. It's like a federal judgeship.
He left the room. It's his fault.
It's for Rich Brett. Any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor?
I'll make a motion that we close the nominations for treasurer. Secretary cast one vote for Richard Brett.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Rich, thank you. We have one nomination for secretary, Francis, AKA Skip Nearney. Where are you, Skip? There you are. Do I have any other nominations from the floor for secretary? Any other nominations from the floor? Any other nominations from the floor?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close nominations for secretary to cast one.
Yeah, vote for
The
himself.
chair cast one vote for Francis Nerney for secretary.
Second. Thank you, Les. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain?
Big two of us make a motion.
Thank you. On behalf of the executive officers of the organization, thank you for your continued support and for supporting the slate of elections. As we enter a new year, we always have opportunities for individuals who would like to get involved more with Remo. If there's a committee that you're not involved in that you'd like to be on, if there is something that you would like to take a leadership role in with respect to what we're trying to accomplish in 2014, drop me an email or a phone call or let Tim know. And I think the more people we have involved, just like you are this evening, the better off the organization will be. QI committee, I know Dean is not here. Tim, would you like to go over the report that's in the packet?
He did submit a report. I believe it was an intubation report. A review of EMS charts, agencies with intubations. And no major findings right there. I don't know if Dr. Daly was involved in that study or not, if he could add anything to it or not, but.
Dr. Daly, would you like to comment on the endotracheal intubation study?
No.
Okay, thank you. County reports, Albany County,
No report.
Columbia County,
No report.
Greene County,
Two educational items. We have 22 people enrolled in our refresher, EMT refresher course that's just started. And I'm told by the administration at Coxsackie High School, I have 20 students signed up for the CFR course as part of their regular curriculum.
wow, that's great. Thanks. Dave, any questions for Dave? Remsco County,
No report.
Saratoga County,
No report. You want to add? No report.
Schenectady County.
No report.
Does anyone have a report on the counties? Thank you. There's no further business on our regular agenda. Is there any new business that anyone would like to bring forward? Dr. Daly.
My apologies, as part of my earlier soliloquy, I forgot to mention two things. The first is that February is Heart Month, and the American Heart Association is putting forth an appeal for an increase in education for hands-only CPR. They'll also be putting more of a push on the legislature to try to encourage the passage of CPR in schools. I don't foresee the CPR in schools is going to move this year either, as unfortunately that's being held up at the Education Committee, or the Education Committee of the Assembly. But you never know, maybe this time it will move. But one thing that Tim is going to be forwarding to all of you is some correspondence from Captain McCarthy of the Heart Association, encouraging everybody to go out and teach CPR during the month of February. She certainly will be a partner to you if you do something in your communities. In particular, Albany County, being led by the sheriff and county executive, are being very active in this process. But this is something that falls out to all of the counties within our geographic area to just try to encourage people to do bystander CPR. It really is relatively easy to set up and do some educational sessions on it. The DVDs are readily available through the Heart Association. Put them on. They start with a brief with some brief pictures of people that have been saved by CPR, and then move into a brief educational component, and then a little bit of hands-only CPR after that. You've got people trained in 5 minutes or less. It works extremely well. As you'll remember, some REMO staff members of the Albany Fire Department, Colony EMS, New York State Police went down and trucked the New York State Senate CPR a few years ago. Basically, you can teach the Senate, you guys can teach the general public. It should work out really well. Senators were quite enthusiastic. I think you should be too. There is a 25-year-old cardiac arrest survivor right now making jokes and chatting with his parents in Albany Med CCU, a testament to both bystander CPR and the success of our former, were they Agency of the Year? Yeah, REMO Agency of the Year, the New York State Police, as well as Clifton Park Half Moon Fire and Ambulance for their efforts on the Northway the other day. This is a 25-year-old who had a sudden cardiac arrest and pulled off the highway. Everybody did a great job, and he is doing really, really well. From that to something else, all ALS providers should be aware and watch for an upcoming change to their protocols. There are 2 papers that were released in December, one in the New England Journal of Medicine and one in the Journal of the American Medical Association, both pertaining to therapeutic hypothermia. In both cases, they showed that probably the things that we are currently doing right now are not doing any harm, but they're probably also not doing a whole lot of good. Therefore, we will most likely, at the next MAC meeting, be issuing an advisory that suggests that we should stop doing pre-hospital therapeutic hypothermia with 2 liters of saline. Wait for that advisory. If so, it'll be issued by the second week of February. My expectation is we probably will issue that. And then for in-hospital personnel, the focus is not on getting people to 33 degrees anymore. The focus is going to be on making sure they don't get febrile after this acute neurovascular insult. They're both, I would recommend that we go read those papers. They actually are really interesting reads. That's interesting to me, perhaps not to anybody else, but I found them to be quite well written. So, if there's any questions about that, certainly grab me afterwards.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Bailey on that report? Any further new business to be brought before the council? Motion adjourned. Lynn, second.
Put your arm up.
Mr. Clark.
Jeez.
Thank you.